Zoom is recording, and I'm going to start the this audio now. Hang on. On this week's episode of the podcast, starting your own business with attorney Derek Bernstein. So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Sean Yesner with Yesner Law. And the podcast is brought to you by my book, which is also called Crushing Debt, the same title as the podcast. You can get it on Amazon. And for those of you, I've been saying for the last couple of episodes, if you would leave the law firm an honest review, take a snapshot, let me know that you've left me a review, point to where the review is. I will end up autographing and sending you one of my books for free. So that's Crushing Debt on Amazon.com and the Crushing Debt Podcast, which obviously you're listening to right now. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. I want to get to my guest this week. As you heard in the introduction, I have a guest. Now, I met this guy. He had to remind me probably 8-9 years ago, so to speak, writing blog articles for the firm that I had back then when he was in law school. And he's gone on to work in a bunch of different areas of the law. He's gone on to work at for other attorneys that I know. We run in very similar circles in terms of the attorneys and the people that we know. He's got a fantastic YouTube page. So I'm going to give you his information. You can check out his YouTube page. As of this recording, 70 videos on his YouTube page covering all different areas of the law. So I want to welcome my guest this week, Derek Bernstein. How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing good. You're dating us back with 9 years ago. Jeez.
Well, and 9 years ago, you were what, a 1L?
I was a 1L at Stetson. Yeah.
Oh, how old does that make me?
Living at my daddy's house.
There you go. That makes me super old.
Clearwater. I negotiated a good deal to live at his house, but as an investment property.
I was already the grizzled old veteran attorney, and you were the young 1L back then. So I don't know how old that makes me.
Yeah, something like that.
So I wanted to tell people real quick. I mentioned you've got a bunch of videos. I'm always seeing you pop up on Facebook Live and YouTube and all that stuff. So I want to tell the listeners that they can check you out on YouTube to search for your page. Type in your name, Derek Bernstein, D-E-R-E-K, Bernstein, B-E-R-N-S-T-E-I-N. So go search Derek on YouTube. You'll find his channel. Please subscribe to his channel. You'll find all of his video content there. You can also connect with him at lawbernstein.com. You can email him, derek@lawbernstein.com, or you can connect with him on Facebook. Just look for Derek Bernstein. Look for the goofy-looking guy doing all the videos, and you can connect with him on Facebook. So those are all the ways to find you. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, so I've been now on my own since 2004 is when I first started my own law firm. You want to talk about dating yourself. But I thought it'd be interesting to talk to you about starting up your own business, because I know in January you broke off on your own. You hung a shingle, so to speak, and went off on your own, right?
I did. And yeah, in 2004, I graduated from Osceola High School in Kissimmee, Florida. So just to put your people on our date differential here on your timeline. But yeah, I had enough of, I always said to myself, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Literally when I grew up, I was the kid. I lived on a golf course, and I used to go hawk golf balls and then resell them back to people at 50 cents a golf ball and make horrible iced tea and lemonade and sell it in my backyard. So I've always been, I was trading baseball cards. I was always trying to make some money on the sides. Remember when, I don't know if you know, but like Warheads, they're like the little candy sucking can.
I remember Warheads.
Yeah, me and my friends, we found like a really good deal on them, and we decided to sell them at school individually for 25 cents a piece. The whole pack was like, we got them for 80 cents. So I've always been like that guy who's always trying to like make a buck, trying to do some stuff, hustle. So I decided when I was working at a gym off of Ulmerton Road back in 2010, I said, I graduated, I had a master's degree in management. I wanted to work for a sports team. I just said, I can't do this anymore. If I'm going to go sell something, I'm going to go sell myself. And so I decided just one day to go to law school, and 2.5 years later came out, at that point I was like, I don't know a damn thing about what I'm doing. Let me go out and just find the first job I can get. Did that, but my goal was always to go out. I wanted to find a career that I could be an entrepreneur. And I'm a risk averse person, which is why it's taken me 6 years to get to the seat where I am now. But I said to myself, if I'm going to do a business, I like restaurants and eating food, but I didn't want that lifestyle. And I want something that would be challenging and something that I could always pivot and change. And so the great thing about law, is today I could be doing criminal law or personal injury. Tomorrow I could go and do bankruptcy. So I get bored easily. I tend to be able to not master something quickly, but get a very good working knowledge of something quickly. So I don't want to be just stuck doing one thing. So law was something that was good to me. And, over the 6 years of being out on my own, I just busted my hump, found some good situations, found some not so great situations. And it was just time now in my career where when everybody in the legal community at networking events and parties is going up to you saying, when are you going out on your own? You got to listen. And it was just like, yeah. I have a plan. And then, it was like, the plan's now. I'm doing it this year. Let's go.
Wow. So a whole bunch of other follow-up questions I want to ask based on that. But the first thing is, it's interesting. I was 6 years out of law school when I decided to go off words for the podcast host or a challenge today. I was 6 years out of law school when I decided to go off on my own. So I think that's a little ironic there. But what I wanted to ask you, the first question I wanted to ask you, did you, and I don't necessarily need numbers or finances or any of the intimate.
I'll give them all. Don't worry.
Did you just say, forget it, I'm going to strike out on my own? Did you save up a war chest? Did you, I know you're married too, right?
I'm married. We have 2 children. When I met my wife, the kids were 10 and 8, and I was 25 years old. So that was a big change. But I've always considered myself kind of an old soul. So I went in, I dove in, this one I was a 1L, and a 1L year. So I was making the big Yesner boss checks on those blog posts weren't paying the bills. So I was living off of student loans and clerking for some people here or there and, filing papers, being a file clerk, whatever it needed to be to hustle, make a little bit of money, because I knew I was never going to be, that top 5% law review guy. That's just not who I am. But when I decided when I was at Dolman Law Group and things were getting a little rocky there near the end, I had a number in my head. And I said to myself, I want to save $100,000 liquid before I start.
Okay.
So I know that's probably like some people who are entrepreneurs are probably like, what a jerk, like $100,000. But I'm risk averse. This is why it took me 6 years to get to where I was.
Right.
So I didn't get to that goal because some, stuff happened. I got shipped across, kind of got traded like an all-star baseball player to the last place. And so that kind of shook it. But then when I really decided, this is what I'm going to do, I really throttled down my spending. When you're making good money, and I was making good money, more money than I'd ever made before. When I was with Dolman and then FL Legal Group and stuff like that, like the money is good. That's why they call it golden handcuffs. That's why they keep you there for so long.
Right.
I can go on any vacation I wanted. I could go to Burns Steakhouse. I could have bought a way more expensive car. So I was spending my credit card bill some months could be $5,000,
Right.
And that was okay because I was still being able to either break even that month or whatever. That was towards, when I wanted to go have fun.
Right.
You can push those numbers. But then when I was like, hey, it's time to put some money back in the make sure I can have another month or 2 or 3, of cushion, then I really throttled it down, didn't book anything new, did some cheap stuff, didn't go out on the weekend, eating at home, those types of things, extra on top of the normal things that I do to save money. I did those so I could save an extra 10, 15 grand, let's say before I started.
Right. Nice. So did you hit your goal before you went off on your own? Did you get close? Did you exceed it?
No. So no, I didn't. Well, it kind of snuck up on me, and it just happened, and I was like,
I assume you got close enough that making the decision to go off on your own was worth it.
yeah. I mean, I have some 401k money put away and things like that. So if I really if the walls were burning, I could liquidate some stuff. I could get a home equity line or whatever that need be. So that $100,000 number is like, it was such like it is a crazy number. I don't need that.
Well, but at the same time, one of the things that I've been looking into, especially in my area of eliminating debt, is a lot of the stuff that you just talked about, eating at home and, saving some money and getting the cheaper car and going on the different vacation and doing the different things to save up the money that you need to save up so that if you want to save, you can.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do love, and the reason why I like your podcast and things so much is I'm like a fiscally very conservative person with how I spend my money. If I think there's good value in something, I'll spend it till, I'm blue in the face, like travel or food. I'll spend a lot of money on travel and food.
Right.
But I was just I did a Facebook Live earlier today, and I was like, people ask me, they're like, oh man, you're everywhere. You're always traveling. You're always doing fun things and things like that. And I'm never like the person to sit back and be like, yeah, I am awesome. I'm over in, I'm in Georgia. I'd be like, look, my cousin has a condo there.
Right.
When I go to Miami, I stay at my sister-in-law's house. I brew my own coffee every morning of the week.
What do you mean you brew your own? Like
I buy coffee at Mazzaro's.
Right.
And then I have a coffee machine. And
you grind up the beans and that kind of stuff?
No, I get it pre-ground. I ground it there. But, I don't go to Starbucks. I don't go to 7-Eleven. I don't go to, those places. Instead of going and shopping at Publix or Whole Foods, we go to Save A Lot. We go to Aldi's. We go to, if I want some organic cool stuff, I'll go to Trader Joe's and buy the $3 bottles of wine.
Right.
And so you add that, I eat at home pretty much. Well, now that I'm on my own, I eat at home pretty much 7 days a week. Yeah,
your office is in your house, right?
Well, I have my home office, which I'm here right now, but I also have another office on First Avenue North, which is I'm getting it ramped up. If I sign up a client, I'll go there. If not, I have a multifunction printer. I have my assistant's space for my assistant downstairs here.
Yeah.
So it's you know how it is with a building. It's like it's 2019.
Right.
I can do everything from anywhere pretty much. My laptop is. So I got my double monitor system here. That's why it looks like I got so much sun coming at me, is because I have my two monitors pointing at my face. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really important when you are trying to start a business, especially, is you got to be humble.
Yeah.
You got to live, the goal is to not have to answer to anybody ever again directly.
Well, and to understand that it's not going to happen right away. It's something that you've got to build. It's something that you've got to create.
Yeah. And so, one thing I did too before starting is I sat down with my wife and we said, let's write out what our I call it like the nut you have to hit.
Right.
What's that hard number that we have to hit as a family every month to break even?
Right.
And so we looked at our numbers, and between car payments, the house payment, insurance, food, entertainment, and I built into it, essentially we capped our weekends at $100 a weekend.
Okay.
So that's what, because I still want to go do some fun things, but it's capped at 100. So when 100's gone, 100's gone. And so we looked at that number, and it was I believe it's about 5,500. I might be missing one little thing or that little thing, but it's a $5,500 number that I need to hit every month personally to break even.
Nice. Okay.
As a family. So,
right.
So
okay.
It gives a number in our head like, okay, if she's making $500 a week, I'm making $1,000 a week, 1,500 times 4.3. Okay, we're there.
Right. Okay, so now let's talk about how do you get there. So I want to talk a little bit about what are the areas of law that you practice. So if any of the people out there listening to this show or watching us on when this goes live on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, personal injury, family law, small business law, what else do you do, or what do you do within those areas of the law?
Yeah, so within personal injury, I represent the injured parties, the non-at-fault parties. So if you're struck by a car on a bicycle, walking, somebody rear ends you, it's the other person's fault. I represent that person. I also, in the personal injury sphere as well, I do an area called PIP suits, like the Florida no-fault law. So I represent a lot of doctors' offices in PIP suit cases. And
Oh,
I can go on.
you represent the doctors, not the injured parties.
Correct.
Okay. And the PIP law, just to remind myself, to make sure I know what I'm talking about, the PIP law is related to what we heard a lot about in terms of you have X number of days after the accident to go see the doctor. Is that
correct? We've all heard John Morgan come on, and he's, for the people, and nothing against him. It's a damn good slogan. I wish I would have been 65 years old and I could come up with it before he got there. But if you're in a car accident, you have 14 days to seek medical attention, or you lose up to $10,000. So your PIP is your $10,000 of your own insurance, so that the purpose is you get a car crash with somebody. It's always up in the air. Who's at fault? Who wants to take liability? All this stuff. Essentially, if you didn't have PIP, you'd have to just sit around, hypothetically, if lawyers didn't exist, right? You would just sit around and have to pay everything out of your pocket to get medical expenses paid. And the average person who just got hit by somebody, who had to go to the hospital or walk-in clinic, they're out of work for 3 weeks, they can't afford to do that. And a lot of doctors can't afford to just treat people for free. It's a business too. So your $10,000 that you have, you go to the doctors, you get an MRI, you get treatment. That $10,000 is to pay that. It also can pay wage loss. It can pay mileage, even though a lot of people don't make mileage or wage loss claims. So you get checked out, and then if those insurance companies don't pay those doctors correctly, I represent the doctors to get paid properly under your insurance policy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's highly contested up in Tallahassee every year. Everybody wants to kill PIP. And I should say everybody. The Trial Lawyers Association wants to kill PIP because they want to trade it for mandatory bodily injury coverage. So we can go on and on and on about mandatory BI is better than PIP, or I think there should be both. I think there's, mandatory UM. That's a whole different podcast right there.
Right.
But then I also do family law. And I realized in the last couple of days, I need to describe better what family law is, because family law to me, I look at it and I go, well, family law is divorces, prenups, child custody, things like that. But people don't realize. So when you hear somebody say, I'm a family law attorney, divorces, you want to relocate with your children, you want to make sure that you do the right motion, alimony, separations, things like that. So family law, not to be confused with like wills and estates and trusts, but family law. And then also, I like to say it's small business law. So I'm not a paperwork person. I'm more of a litigator. So I deal a lot with conflicts. So if you have a partnership and the other guy breached the partnership agreement, I'm really good at suing that person. Now, if you want a partnership agreement drafted, I'm probably not the guy you want to talk to, because I just don't. I'm not good at typing things for 4 hours. I'll think of all the provisions in the way that if you don't write something, you're going to get screwed over by your partner, but you want somebody else to draft that. So I do some work with a local attorney here as well in St. Petersburg, Kalpesh Patel. He does business law, but he's not really a litigator. So I help him with his litigation files as well.
Yeah, I wish I knew all this before I hired you to write blogs for me way back in the day.
I always tell people, like we were talking about other people who, I applied for some little job, or I was talking with Christian Denman. He's been really great to me. Denman Perlman, they literally do the same exact things I do, minus the business stuff. And he's been really good helping me, give me like with some forms, and I do some coverage work for him. And I actually applied for him for an associate position right after I graduated, and he didn't hire me. And I was like, don't you wish you would have hired me 6 years ago? I would have made you guys a lot of money. And he just laughed, and he's like, dude, we just opened too. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. So I thought it was funny.
it's interesting that there's not, we may consider some competitors in one area or another, but I think one of the things I like about practicing law is that a lot of times I can pick up the phone and call somebody that might otherwise be a competitor and say, hey man, here's the problem I'm having in this other case. What do you think? And I think the legal community here in Tampa is good in that we all sort of have that relationship with each other. There may be a burned partnership bridge here and there that I'll never talk about, but other than that, we can probably call each other and say, hey man, here's the problem I'm having with this, with that. What do you think? What do you suggest? Can you cover this hearing for me? Can you, what do you think I should do there?
Yeah, I mean, that happens with, the nice thing for me as a personal injury attorney who also does PIP suits is there's not a lot of us that do both.
Right.
So in the Tampa market, I used that opportunity I got with Dolman Law Group when I was running their PIP department to branch myself and brand myself to everybody who would listen, essentially, that, hey, I do personal injury. I know PIP suits. Talk to me, whatever you need. And so I have attorneys now that I'm on my own they know my work ethic. They know I do good work. And they're like, hey, cover a depot for me, cover a hearing for me, show up on time somewhere. Can you sign this client up? And those are people who are direct competitors of me just because I didn't go to them and were like a jerk because the client who called them was, if they weren't there, they would have called me. We don't know that. So it's like, just go out there, hustle. When your phone rings, make the best of it and move on.
So you make the decision to go off on your own. I've got this target amount. I've got enough. I think now I can open the doors and start on my own. How did you decide? I want to do PIP. I want to do personal injury. I want to do this area. I want to do that area. I mean, for me, it was easy. I came from a firm that represented banks in foreclosure. So to turn that on its ear, kind of easy decision for me. So how did you decide I'm starting my own business? Here are the services I want to offer.
Well, so personal injury has always been a goal. When I got into PIP, my idea was always to parlay that into doing more bodily injury work.
Okay.
One of the big reasons I'm sitting here where I am today is because I never found a place that supported that.
So you can create now what you want.
So I just created the opportunity.
Right.
Because you know how it is. People come back to you because you're their attorney. Not if I got a referral somewhere else, I had to give it up to another attorney, and then sit in the background and say, "Well, let me check on the case for you," and then go send somebody else an email. I don't like doing that. I want to have control of my files. So that was always my big goal. But then I actually like PIP because I look at it as it's a very important piece to the personal injury sphere, and it's very important to not just the personal injury attorneys, not just the doctors, not just the people. It's everybody working together. And I might be suing somebody for $74, or I've settled cases for a penny before. But I'm holding these insurance companies. It's just like a criminal defense attorney. It's not about this one crime. It's about the system. It's about holding people accountable. So, I really get to that where I always read, I think it was a quote before, and it was like, look, add a zero to the amount at issue until you really care about it, and then treat the case like it's worth that much. So I don't care whether the case is worth $1 or $10 million. I was going to push it hard, try to settle it for my clients. So I wanted to continue doing those two things. And then I've always had a passion for family law. So I booked the class at Stetson. I used to be in the Canacaris Inns of Court, which is, I feel like, the premier court for family law in the area.
And by the way, for the non-attorney listeners, when someone says I booked it, that means
not true.
You got the top grade in the class for that class, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was something I've always been passionate about, the family law, because, to me, the best things are the gray area. So it's kind of like bankruptcy is pretty cool because there is a lot of gray of like what fits into this exclusion, what's in that exception. There's good places to argue and show your craft.
Right.
Where, criminal law's got that good. Family law's got that because it's all, emotion and where should the person go? You got to put on, it's like, the Greatest Showman. I got to put on my show and put on my game face and play whatever role I need to play that day to get the job done for my client ethically. I don't lie. I just use the facts that I have and highlight what I need to highlight and downplay what I need to downplay. So, I like that portion. That's why I've always liked family law. And throughout my life, throughout my legal career, people keep coming to me with family law questions. And so it's also too, so we go back to also to the business law too, as well as the family is, when we're talking about financials, is those are billable hours. I bill people, or I flat rate. Sometimes I'll flat rate some pre-suit things, give a flat number that I can handle something pre-suit on a business thing, some letters, some phone calls. So it's a great way for me financially to bring in money, because all the PIP suits and all the bodily injury are all contingency. So I have to win the case or settle before I get paid.
Right.
So it's a great way to keep the doors open, pay my overhead, pay my staff, pay for internet, as I'm waiting for these bigger cases to resolve themselves and to be pushed. So from a financial aspect, it makes sense.
Okay. So last question, a little bit off topic maybe, but so you've started your own business now. I've started my own business now. I'm a handful of years ahead of you, as we discussed at the beginning. What is advice that you might have? What's one thing that you've learned here, in whether it's starting your own business or whether you want to be specific in starting your own law firm? What's one thing you've learned, one lesson that you would say to somebody who says, hey man, I'm going off on my own too? What's one suggestion you might have for them?
So for me, I'm kind of a procrastinator when it came to things too. What I would say is, if the person has this fixated in their mind, and I was just talking to, I'm not going to name drop, but I was just talking to a young lady that I know, and her goal is kind of to own her own gym, would be like a really great, like one of those CrossFit boxes. And I told her, I was like, look, volunteer to do the books. Volunteer to help do the books for the one that you're at. Learn all the little mistakes and the nuances and the things you don't know now for somebody else's business. Because when you get to your own, and like we were laughing about it, because me and my assistant, like last Friday, I had to I struggled to send send certified letters.
Right.
Because I never sent my own mail.
Right.
I wrote a thing. I didn't know which way to put the envelope in the printer. And these are all things that I could have done 8 months ago, so that today I didn't have to figure out which way to do it and then look stupid because the printing was on the envelope underneath side and things like that. So I would say is, really look at it that you get your 9 to 5 on, and then work on what you want in the future at night. If you got young kids, put the kids to sleep at 8, go upstairs, sit down in front of your computer and build your retainer agreements. Build
Right.
your website if you can't afford to get a website. And I'll give a shout out too. Jeremy Kokomice at Skyway Media built my website for me, took really good care of me. He's done me a favor. We've known each other. I've tried to send him business over the years, but he did me a real solid with my website, and it looks awesome. So I thank him a lot. But those types of things is I did a little bit of that, but not like I should have.
Right.
You can open up, nobody's going on Sunbiz and searching your name, especially if you have a more common name, like Derek Bernstein, Sean Yesner, those are not common. So if they look, but who's going on Sunbiz to check to see when you opened your LLC?
Right.
If you work at the Gap at the mall, nobody's checking to see if you opened an LLC. Nobody checked my name to see if I opened an LLC before I left. So, get your LLC done. I had to look at it and get get your FEIN, your tax ID number. That took me some reading and watching a YouTube video and
it's a form on the IRS website.
I still had to figure it out. I don't do paperwork. I'm not a paperwork guy. I had to do that. And then it took me weeks of procrastinating before I went to the bank and opened a bank account just for the business and, get your cards written up and, those types of things, so that when you hit the ground running, now I have half that stuff was done, but then, I had to do, hey, look, today I got a person signed up for a family law case, but I don't have a family law retainer. Let me go create one, And so instead of that, I could have been somewhere networking or marketing or doing another video or doing another live stream or hanging out and doing nothing and just relaxing, So I would just tell people is like, get your ducks in a row. But also what I tell people is like, don't overthink things. Like nobody gives a damn what my card looks like.
Right.
I'm not getting a case because of my card.
Right.
So don't overthink the name. I always tell people like Apple is one of the largest companies in the world selling computers and iPods and all that. The name is stupid. It's Apple. Like it doesn't matter, just do you have a good product, do good work, and like that'll sell it. Nobody cares what my law firm's name is. They care how I make them feel and the work I can do for them.
Right.
It's like the content, the videos I do. I give really good legal advice, but I'm not going to spend 5 hours a day editing my videos.
Right.
I'd rather just create 10 more videos. So like those are the things like that I've always taken that are my personality, and for the good, bad, or the different, I don't overthink too much of what I do, other than I overthought probably way too much of when I should start my own firm. Like the big thing is the one that took me so long, but then when I'll draft my letters, I'll figure it out when I get there. Nobody's kicking down my door to give me family law cases. I'm getting some, but they're not like stacking up where I'm like losing my mind. So I got time to do things.
Right. Very cool. Well, I want to give out your information again, and I agree with almost everything that you've said, and in fact, probably very similar to an answer I would have given, 3 to 6 months after being out on my own as well. Just get started, just do it. A lot of people, it's a very similar analogy. A lot of people say to me, I want to get started with a podcast. How do I do it? You fire up the mic and you start talking. That's how you do it.
And one thing I'd like to just add to what you're saying is, so as lawyers, and we were talking a little before we came on, so if you're watching this and you're thinking of starting a law firm, cool, probably everything I said is good. But if you're thinking of starting something that isn't maybe as lucrative to begin with, because, my rates for things are very good, comparative to a person selling iced tea, right? So if you're a person or even attorney, you don't have the cash saved up, guess what? You can work your law firm job. You can get up at 7 a.m, hop on a computer and work till 3 every day, and then go serve tables at night.
Right.
You can do document review as an attorney, where you look over all these documents and get paid $5 an hour, and 9 to 5 that, which may not kill your soul, like, cause you're working for somebody you don't like or whatever, and then come home at 6 and run your firm till midnight. So like, don't be like, I'm a lawyer, I can't do that. I'll go and bartend events, like I'll go pick up other people's hearings, depots. I'm not too good. And I think those parts of me, because I'm not too good to, to pick up other people's stuff or do things or hustle for my family. That's why I know I'll never have to go back to working for somebody else unless I choose to, because I don't have the money there. Because that 5,500 will become 2,500 because of the hustling.
But I think that applies regardless. I mean, I agree it applies in connection with a law firm, but I think it applies. Yeah. I think it applies regardless. In other words, there's plenty of people within the podcast industry, within the YouTube industry, within the social media industry that they do a 9-to-5 job, and they've created a totally separate cash flow from whatever it is other thing that they want to do, whatever other information they want to provide. Maybe they start a YouTube channel, maybe they start a podcast, maybe they write a book, maybe they something totally unrelated to their 9-to-5 job that gives them the money, that gives them the freedom, that gives them the flexibility to eventually leave that and do whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah, and then you might have to, if you're watching this and you want what you want, downsize.
Yeah.
Sell your car, get a scooter.
Right.
Go rent an efficiency, get rid of the big house with the extra bedrooms that you never use.
Right.
Because, I used to hate waking up on Mondays. So now I don't. I stress about, making more money, but I'd rather stress about that than hate going to work every day.
Right. So I got to wrap up this episode, but there'll be plenty of time. We can do plenty of more episodes. I do want to tell everybody, go check out Derek's YouTube page. Go to YouTube, search him out, Derek Bernstein. He's got 70, a ton of video content all on the law. You can email him, Derek, DEREK, at lawbernstein.com. You can connect with him on Facebook. You can search out Bernstein Law. Also on Facebook, you can go to lawbernstein.com, or you can call him 727-209-7957, and I'll have all that information in the notes.
Goes right to my cell phone, and I will answer for the most part.
For the most part. I guess it depends on what time, maybe.
Text me. If you text me, I'll respond quicker.
There you go. So, Derek, thanks again. I really, really appreciate you being an episode on this week's show.
No problem. If you still need some blog content,
I think I'm actually we may have something to talk about when I end the show here, but I think I'm going to do just that. So thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, and we will catch you in next week's episode.
Perfect.
Wow.
Good.
I
can run my mouth. My old boss used to say, it's usually the person who talks the most who wins the hearing. I said, well, I think I'm going to be undefeated.